Caitlin Clark is now scheduled to play some golf.
That Caitlin Clark is going back to the LPGA golf tour.
So Caitlin Clark has officially taken the golf course from the basketball court to the golf course. And of course, there has been much attention around said.
The modern sports landscape is a complex ecosystem, a vibrant and volatile arena where athletic excellence intersects with media narratives, brand power, and cultural influence. It's a world where a highlight reel can be as valuable as a championship ring, and where attention is the ultimate currency. For years, the rules of engagement in this arena, particularly for women's sports, seemed to follow a predictable, albeit hard-fought, script: excel on the court, earn accolades, leverage that success for endorsements, and gradually push for greater visibility. This was the established path, a ladder to be climbed rung by rung. But in the span of a single, sun-drenched weekend, on the manicured fairways of a prestigious golf tournament, that entire script was not just rewritten. It was torn up, set alight, and used to illuminate a new path forward. At the center of this seismic shift stood Caitlin Clark, a basketball phenom who, by simply showing up to play a game at which she is an admitted amateur, triggered a chain reaction that has left leagues, fellow athletes, and the media industry itself grappling with a new reality. This is not merely a story about an athlete trying golf. This is a case study in the raw, disruptive power of transcendent stardom in the 21st century. It is a narrative about the tension between earned legacy and generated hype, between tradition and innovation, and about the uncomfortable, exhilarating moment when one individual's gravitational pull becomes strong enough to bend the orbits of entire sports. The stage for this upheaval was the Annika Sörenstam hosted tournament, an exclusive, celebrity-studded LPGA event known more for its star power and charity work than for being a ratings juggernaut. Initially, the LPGA's plans were modest. The event was not scheduled for television broadcast or even a substantial live stream.
News this past week is the LPGA event that Caitlin Clark will be golfing in. Now, we heard about this a couple months ago and fans were stoked. They were going to be so excited to see Caitlin Clark on a golf course. However, the event was not planning on televising the event. They weren't planning on live streaming the event. But since the thousands of emails from angry fans that they could not watch Caitlin Clark, since they have gotten all of those emails, they have now changed their tune. And now you guys can tune in.
It was to be a high-profile, yet contained, affair. Then came the announcement that Caitlin Clark would participate. The reaction was instantaneous and overwhelming. A torrent of emails and social media demands from fans, many of whom had never followed a minute of LPGA coverage, flooded the tour's offices. They were not asking, they were insisting on access. The demand was so forceful, so undeniable in its volume, that the LPGA's calculus changed overnight. They pivoted, scrambling to provide a national broadcast feed. This was the first clue that something extraordinary was happening. An athlete's mere presence had overridden pre-existing business models. The fans, through sheer collective will, had dictated programming. From the moment Clark stepped onto the first tee, it was clear this was no ordinary celebrity cameo. The LPGA, sensing the opportunity, did not treat her as a novelty act. They positioned her as the main event. She was paired with Nelly Korda, the world's #1 ranked female golfer, for her front nine, and with the legendary Annika Sörenstam herself on the back nine. It was a masterstroke of staging, placing the most talked about athlete in women's sports alongside the absolute pinnacle of achievement in this other domain. The crowds that followed her gallery were unlike typical golf audiences. They were louder, younger, and pulsating with an energy more commonly found in a packed basketball arena. Chants of Caitlin echoed across the serene course. Media outlets that traditionally allocated minimal resources to women's golf suddenly had crews tracking her every swing, her every smile, her every interaction. Hashtags like #Clark Effect and #Caitlin Clark LPGA began trending globally, not in niche sports circles, but across the mainstream digital landscape. Clark herself handled the spotlight with a disarming blend of humility and poise. In interviews, she was quick to deflect, emphasizing her status as a fan and an amateur. "I'm not a professional golfer by any means," she said with a laugh, expressing sheer gratitude for the chance to play alongside her idols. This was not a brash invasion. It was a respectful, yet immensely powerful, visitation. And therein lay its genius. She wasn't claiming to be a golfer. She was demonstrating that her appeal was sport agnostic. She was Caitlin Clark, the phenomenon, and the context was almost secondary. The LPGA.
And you were playing with world number one Nelly Korda on your first nine. And
yeah, no pressure.
Yeah, that you were playing with Annika Sörenstam on the back nine. So
yeah, I think I'm just excited, honestly. I'm not a professional golfer by any means, so I think just having fun and like getting to be with, two of the best to, probably ever play this game. It's super fun and special for me. Like, I'm a fan of both of them, but a fan of, all the women on this tour. I think it's absolutely incredible.
A tour that has long fought for consistent mainstream attention, recognized this instantly. They saw in Clark a rare catalytic agent, a figure who could draw eyes not just to a player, but to an entire ecosystem. They embraced her not as a gimmick, but as a force multiplier. The ratings validated this bet. Viewership spiked. Social media engagement exploded. Merchandise moves that incorporated the moment saw items sell out. A significant portion of the audience was confessedly there for Clark, but in the process, they were introduced to Nelly Korda's formidable talent, to the beauty of the tour, and to the sport itself. This was the rising tide effect in real time. Clark's ship was so large, its wake lifted every vessel in the harbor. However, on the other side of the sporting world, in the gyms and film rooms of the WNBA, the view of this sun-drenched golf weekend was considerably more complex. For the stars who had built their careers, won MVP awards, and secured championships within the rigors of professional basketball, the spectacle was a source of profound and conflicting emotions. The reports, whispers, and leaked frustrations pointed to a growing tension. A'ja Wilson, the Las Vegas Aces superstar and face of the league, was cited as being particularly frustrated behind closed doors. The narrative, whether fully accurate or not, painted a picture of an athlete who has battled for years to elevate both her game and her league's profile, watching as a younger rival commanded a national spotlight and reportedly an $8 million cross-sport endorsement package for playing a different game at an amateur level. The core of the frustration wasn't about Clark's talent or her basketball success, which is widely respected. It was about the economy of attention.
Even if you're not a diehard women's basketball fan, you just want to be in the ecosystem because you kind of feel like you're watching history unfold. And that kind of a feel is what's driving so much of the positivity around the women's basketball game. And of course, that's carrying through to the Gainbridge and her participation in the Annika at this penultimate event of the LPGA season. The great part about this whole story is that it is a rising tide, if you will, that lifts pretty much every single boat out there.
It was the unsettling feeling that the traditional metrics of success, MVP trophies, scoring titles, rings, were being suddenly revalued against a new currency: viral magnetism and cross-platform appeal. Angel Reese, the Chicago Sky forward known for her own formidable brand and court presence, was also mentioned in industry reports as feeling the strain. The sentiment attributed to her circle highlighted a perceived imbalance. While she and others were grinding through a season, fighting for postseason position and media snippets, Clark was generating headlines from a golf course. This created a poignant dissonance. There was respect for a fellow athlete's moment, but irritation at the speed and scale of her ascent, and at the feeling that their own sustained excellence was being momentarily eclipsed. Some reactions were passive, like the reported social media blocks a digital shrug of frustration rather than a declaration of war. Others were more emotional. The online backlash to these rumored frustrations was swift and severe. Critics flooded comment sections, arguing that Clark wasn't taking anything from anyone. She was bringing new attention to women's sports as a whole. The message was blunt: no one took your MVP. Expand your own brand. She's playing a different game in more ways than one. This public and private drama exposes the central conflict of this new era. Caitlin Clark's move represents a fundamental evolution in the archetype of the women's sports star. She is not a singular sport athlete who dabbles in endorsements. She is a multi-platform, cross-sport content generator and attention engine for whom basketball is the foundational, but not exclusive, pillar. Her strategy is holistic. Every appearance, whether on a basketball court, a golf...
It's not just women's sports, right, Rich? It's just sports in general. I mean, it's a generational impact that we're witnessing right now, and that's the reason why so many millions of people have tuned in to just catch a glimpse.
Golf course, or a talk show, is a piece of a larger narrative about growth, accessibility, and mainstream appeal. She has intuitively understood that in today's fragmented media environment, sticking to one lane is a limitation. Influence is built by existing in multiple spaces simultaneously, creating a pervasive presence that feels both aspirational and relatable. The LPGA recognized this and leveraged it perfectly. They provided the platform and allowed her cultural gravity to do the rest. In stark contrast, the WNBA, the institution that should be the primary beneficiary of her stardom, has often seemed caught between pride and perplexity. The league has struggled at times to manage the sheer magnitude of attention she commands. During last season's WNBA Finals, a crowning moment for the league's best teams, Clark, whose team was not participating, often trended higher online than the champions themselves. This wasn't due to any action on her part, but simply because the public's interest in her narrative was insatiable. It highlighted a challenging dynamic: the league's systemic growth and a single player's meteoric individual fame are not always perfectly synchronized. The golf weekend amplified this. While the WNBA was in season, its own brightest star, in terms of cultural footprint, was creating a media frenzy in another sport. For veterans like Wilson and Reese, this can feel like a diversion of energy and focus, a zero-sum game where Clark's gain is their loss. But the Clark phenomenon argues the opposite. It suggests the game is not zero-sum, but expansive. She is not stealing a finite pie of attention. She is baking new, larger pies and inviting everyone to the table. The millions who tuned into the LPGA for Clark are not a closed set. They are a potential new audience for women's sports at large. Some fraction of those viewers will now check out an LPGA major. Others might, seeing Clark's connection to Korda, develop a newfound interest in women's golf. And many will carry that heightened engagement back to the WNBA when she returns to the court. The Clark effect is, in theory, a halo effect. The tension arises because the benefits are diffuse and long-term, while the spotlight's shift feels immediate and personal to those who temporarily step out of its beam. This moment is a mirror held up to the entire industry, reflecting uncomfortable truths about performance versus personality, specialization versus generalization, and legacy versus leverage. Aja Wilson and Angel Reese represent the pinnacle of the traditional model. Dominate your sport, collect the hardware, and use that authority to advocate and build. Their resumes are unimpeachable. Their respect is hard-earned. Caitlin Clark represents the vanguard of a new model. Dominate your sport and transcend its boundaries. Master the media cycle and build a brand that is bigger than the game itself. Her resume is still being written, but her influence is already outsized. The mental and emotional toll of this shift cannot be underestimated. For veterans, watching Clark's trajectory can feel like playing by an old set of rules only to find the championship is now awarded under a completely new system. It forces a difficult introspection. Do I double down on what I know excellence in my sport? Or do I need to expand my own game, to think like a media company, to cultivate a presence beyond the hardwood? This is the new crossroads. Performance is the non-negotiable entry fee, but it is no longer the sole determinant of success. Visibility, narrative control, and the strategic curation of one's own story are the new differentiators. Clark's most potent weapon in this environment has been her strategic silence. Amid the bubbling controversy, the leaked frustrations, and the online skirmishes, she has remained almost entirely above the fray. She does not engage in public spats, defend her choices, or acknowledge the noise. This silence is deafeningly powerful. It creates an aura of unbothered focus, of someone operating on a different plane. It forces everyone else to react, to explain, to emote, while she continues to move, quietly signing deals, making appearances, and expanding her empire. Every new partnership, be it with Nike, Gatorade, or a rumored streaming documentary project, acts as a tacit rebuttal to any criticism. The market is speaking. and it is shouting her name. Her calm becomes a vacuum that pulls all the chaotic energy of the debate toward her, only amplifying her centrality. The implications of this single weekend are vast and ripple far beyond individual athletes. Leagues across the sports world are taking notes. The LPGA's agile, all-in embrace of a crossover star is now a blueprint. Other leagues, in soccer, tennis, and beyond, are undoubtedly studying how to identify and harness their own catalytic agents. The episode proves that in the attention economy, boldness is rewarded. Hesitation is a luxury no one can afford. For brands, Clark represents a new kind of ambassador, one who doesn't just represent a product, but who embodies a cultural movement and can transfer credibility and excitement across disparate domains. For the athletes themselves, Clark's journey sets a daunting new bar. Future stars will be evaluated not just on points per game or tournament wins, but on their Q rating, their social media engagement, their ability to drive narratives, and their comfort in multiple arenas. The job description has expanded. The ones who adapt, who view themselves as athletes, content creators, and entrepreneurs will thrive. Those who cling solely to the old paradigms risk finding themselves revered but not necessarily relevant in the daily churn of the sports media machine. In the end, the story of Caitlin Clark's golf weekend is a story about control. It's about who gets to control the narrative, the spotlight, and the future trajectory of women's sports. Clark, through a combination of preternatural talent, market timing, and shrewd strategy, has seized a remarkable degree of control. She didn't ask for permission from the sporting establishment. She created facts on the ground, massive fan demand, skyrocketing ratings, lucrative deals, and forced the establishment to adapt to her reality. The WNBA's Aja Wilson and Angel Reese, caught in this whirlwind, are facing the uncomfortable task of deciding how to regain a sense of agency within this new landscape. Do they lean further into their proven championship paths, trusting that legacy will ultimately prevail? Or do they embark on their own journeys of brand expansion, meeting this new challenge on its own terms? The drama is far from over. The deals will keep coming. The reactions will continue to simmer. The quiet power moves will unfold behind the scenes. What is certain is that the landscape has been permanently altered. Caitlin Clark didn't just play a round of golf. She teed off on the old way of doing things and drove the ball so far that we're all still straining to see where it lands. In doing so, she has initiated a profound and irreversible conversation about value, visibility, and the very nature of stardom in the modern age. The game has changed, and everyone, from the veterans in the locker room to the executives in the boardroom, is now forced to learn the new rules.